Hi all. We'll be we'll just give it 5 minutes for everyone to join and then we'll kick off the session. Okay, fantastic. So what we're gonna do is kick off the session going forward. Um, just allowing, I think we're giving enough time. Yeah, that's good. Cool. So what I'll do, without further ado, move forward with the session. Cool. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to have you here for this Hack the Stack Shopify webinar, where we're here diving into practical strategies and helping you build a successful online brand on a budget. Today's session is all about equipping you with actionable steps so that at the end you'll feel ready to take your ideas forward and start building a powerful online presence. This session isn't just about learning new skills, it's about empowering you with the confidence and tools needed to bring you your reality to life, your vision to life. Hack That Stack is passionate about making tech skills accessible and meaningful, and we're thrilled for you here to support this your journey going forward. Special acknowledgement to Black History Month as well. Hosting this webinar during Black History Month makes it even more impactful. This month, we're celebrating the strength and resilience and achievements of the Black community and in tech, and it's vital to continue working towards an inclusive, empowering community where everybody can thrive. Today's session is just one step in that direction, and we're grateful for you to be a part of it. So thank you again for joining us, and we're working together and building a stronger and more resilient community. But yeah, let's dive into the session today going forward. So, Hack That Stack. Who are we? What are we about? What's our mission? Now, Hack That Stack is a community to building a stronger, more empowered community. We are working to increase awareness across the board in the tech space, supporting businesses in building their online presence, preparing the future talent for the world that's shaping within technology. Our goal is to create opportunities and pathways for people of all backgrounds, helping them harness the power of technology to create a lasting impact. Our mission is to drive and the passion of empowering the community particularly around us as well in terms of Black history, but in the sense of inspiring and the importance of representation and diversity in designing and providing valuable insights into the tech industry, equipping our community with the tools necessary to build our brands and careers forward to the next era. Why does this matter? Because today's market, business, and individuals alike face unique challenges, especially with the rapid changes in technology and evolving ways of the working world. Now, Hack That Stack is here to help the community stay ahead of the trends and provide affordable, practical courses and insights. Now, what our future courses look like? Well, we're looking to now provide essential skills for not just for today, but for tomorrow. And these skills include artificial intelligence, UI, UX design, data science, data engineering, cloud computing, cybersecurity, you name it, and much more. So our courses are here to design to be more practical, accessible, and aiming to build on not just the knowledge, but obviously the confidence in using these technologies. But without further ado, I would like to hand over to Yutunde, who would be able to expand more on Tech 432.
Hi everyone, hope you're all having a great evening. So, as Tashan mentioned, my name is Yatunde and I'm the founder of Tech 432, which is a non-profit organization dedicated to helping young underrepresented talent get into the tech industry. Our organization provides mentorship opportunities, workshops, and resources to help guide young people into discovering and pursuing their desired careers. With the name Tech 432, it does have meaning. So the name represents the unique challenges faced by our young people currently. And as someone who's worked in the industry, I've seen this firsthand. So the 4 in Tech 432 symbolizes the fact that Black men are 4 times more likely to find it harder to secure employment opportunities after graduating. The 3 represents the fact that it's 3 times harder for Black graduates to find employment opportunities after graduating. And the 2 represents the fact that only 2% of the tech workforce consists of Black women. So these are really dire stats. And it's something that I've seen as well, and something that I directly wanted to challenge in the industry. So Tech 432 was created out of this passion to challenge these stats and work directly to improve employment outcomes for our young underrepresented groups, which is why we've partnered with organizations such as Hack That Stack to help upskill talent today on Shopify. And it's a very lucrative industry as well. And sometimes when we see employment challenges that particularly impact our community, sometimes we have to put our foot in the door. We have to create these opportunities for ourselves. So we have a deep mission to empower young people, young underrepresented groups, and believe that they can get into any industry that they believe that they can and create their own versions of success. So success in learning about Shopify. And so far, we've worked with over 200 people, and this is very much the start. And as Tashan mentioned, so many opportunities in the future to upskill and learn on different technology tools. So I'll hand it over back to you, Tashan. Thanks.
No, thank you for that. Well, as you said, rightly said, the mission is to empower and obviously create that opportunity across the board. So let us go a bit further into this session going forward. Let's focus on not just obviously just the tech itself, but how cheap is it to set up an online platform going forward? There are so many variables that come into building an online store, such as server costs, design, building up a whole responsive website, marketing, etc. There's so many things. But what can Shopify do? Well, Shopify is quite easy and cost effective to set up. Just thinking about the basic Shopify plan, it's actually only £25 a month. Now, this is just for you to set up your online store, have unlimited product listings and blogs going forward. Now, if you're not a developer, how would you do this? How do you utilize this very quickly? Well, Shopify provides you with 3 themes, 7 in total at this moment in time. And with these 3 themes, you can utilize the 3 themes that allow you to present your website online, which is mobile responsive with all the products and services you want. And you can adjust it at will. Within that as well, additionally, there's Shopify apps, which include SEO tools, marketing solutions, and social media integrations. Now, at the same time, these are great things. And obviously, some parts of it can be a bit pricey, up to £75 or a bit more. But at the same time, we're going to focus on more the free tier, which going forward. So we're not going to spend too much money there. Then thinking about marketing expenses and going forward, there's things like Klaviyo or MailChimp that offer free mailing lists and obviously retention strategies going forward. Now, sometimes you have to put a pretty penny towards it, but again, it's very costly and very affordable, especially at the beginning because it has free tier going forward. And then you have to think about your domain name. Sometimes you don't want to just utilize the default Shopify URL, and you might put something that's more aligned with your brand. Now, all of this going forward is still not even £100, it's under £50, which is fantastic. So your first month of setup costs are pretty much at the bare minimum. So let's go to the next part. So in terms of just thinking about Shopify itself, there are so many advantages going forward, but how much money is made online? Well, currently in last year, 2025 and 23, there was an estimate valuation of 5.9 trillion made from e-commerce, USD dollars, and the growth was expected to expand to 8.1 trillion in 2026. So you can see the train is not stopping. Within just the UK alone, the market was valued at 125 billion in 2023. And majority of retail sales made in that year was e-commerce at 27%. Now that's a huge number going forward. Within the leading categories of the UK e-commerce was fashion, fashion, electronics, groceries, and health and beauty. So if you're in these areas, fantastic. If not, it's fine because there's many more markets and niches that you can expand on. The key drivers of e-commerce there as well was mobile commerce, global reach, and social commerce. Within this, the expansion was very useful within mobile responsiveness, which played a big part. Shopify was obviously in global reach, was very useful, and obviously social commerce for increasing the major sectors or sources of revenue. So now going forward, what could you create though? What's a success story in Shopify? So places such as Kith, which is a New York street brand wear, which provides you fashion, collaborations, limited drops, creating a sense of exclusivity. And then you have Gymshark, again, which is a well-known brand, providing products and services across the border for fitness. So these are well-known players in the game that have provided great value across the border. Now, if you're obviously not building a business, but you want to look into Shopify as a career, what other opportunities are there? Well, now there's quite a few areas you can go into. So such as Shopify theme developer, Shopify app developer, web front end, full stack, etc. But now, if you don't want to be a developer, there's other areas such as UX designer, UI, UX designer, designing pretty pages in terms of how that website will look, e-commerce manager in terms of managing online stores, optimizing sales, or even just a digital marketing specialist in terms of managing the digital market strategies for the Shopify stores for SEO, SEM, social media, etc. But at the same time, these are great opportunities, but how much would you get paid? Well, the earning potential across the board is quite significant in terms of value. So as an entry developer going forward, you start at 25K, but as a senior, you can reach up to 50 to 70,000 going forward, which is a great number. Now, if you're not a developer, you're not interested in those type of areas, you can still, as an e-commerce manager, start at 30K and go up to 90K plus going forward. So there's great opportunities in these fields. So without further ado, let's go over what we will be learning today. So the main factors of today, we're going to learn about Shopify, understand how to navigate the store, what its use cases are, features, and how we can manipulate a free tier application without using code. And then we're going to dive in to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and just understanding how that can be a reality in terms of creating your own customized themes, your own customized websites through Shopify. And then obviously utilizing Liquid, which is specific to Shopify in terms of accessing all your backend content. So if I just show you the end goal and example in a sense, one side, we're going to go looking at the Shopify store going forward. And the other side, we're going to look into customizing that and enhancing that going forward, part of our journey today. So let me go forward. So let's go through the first steps, Shopify. Why use Shopify? Well, Shopify is secure and reliable, number one. So Shopify takes care of all the security concerns and ensures that your store is safe for all transactions. So it provides you with SL certificate, payment gateways, and ensures you with PCI compliance. Now, if that's gone over your head, it's fine. Basically, in short terms, it makes sure everything is secure to a point where you do not need to worry about anything other than just focusing on the design of your product and making sure that your brand is basically being broadcasted in the way that you want, which obviously gives a lot of developers more time going forward. Now, multiple sales channels through Shopify, as I said before. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. There's so many more, Amazon, eBay. So these are great channels to integrate with, where you can then broadcast not only just on Shopify, but through these other extensions, mediums. There's multiple payment options. These options are very useful. So at the same time, we don't have to focus as a developer, especially as a developer, you don't have to focus on payment gateways going forward, and where it would take you so much time to actually make that robust and obviously working properly, you can just now plug in and play and utilize the options that they provide for you, such as PayPal, Stripe, and Shopify payments, which makes things so much easier going forward. Other things such as SEO tools and affordable pricing is also included of why we should use Shopify going forward, because obviously broadcasting that, providing a stronger rank on Google search engines, for example, is definitely priority in some cases. And obviously it's a quick setup. So again, which I'll expand on further as we go forward in terms of free tier and paid tier. So in terms of e-commerce, let's just understand the fundamentals. So e-commerce for short is electronic commerce, refers to buying and selling of goods and services on the internet. So now if you're on Shopify, maybe you want to do B2B, business to business. And this type of business is selling products and services to other businesses, involving larger orders, volumes, and other involves customization, pricing, and contracts. But if you're not focused on that, maybe you would want to do more of a consumer to consumer, C2C. And this is where e-commerce involves individuals selling products or services to other individuals. And obviously within that, we build on e-commerce platforms, where e-commerce platforms provide the necessity of infrastructure to build and manage the online store, which is Shopify. So Shopify is one of the most popular e-commerce platforms, offering a user-friendly interface, customizable themes, secure payment processing, and inventory management. Now, going forward, the ease of use of Shopify is one of the main parts of, one of its main selling points. So it provides a virtual storefront where customers can browse and purchase products, including listings, description, and images, and pricing information. Now, one of these features would be shopping carts. So now you don't have to build your own shopping cart. Shopify provides that for you. So again, plug in and play, easy, accessible, and then something that gets you off the ground quickly. Payment gateways. This is obviously an system for securely processing online payments. You do not need to build this from scratch anymore. Shopify provides that for you. So now you can focus on the major details in terms of retention, abandoning carts, those type of things. And then you've got inventory management. E-commerce platforms offering tools to manage your inventory, to track stock levels and automate reordering processes. Now, again, this just saves so much time as a developer and building that business use case out from scratch, where Shopify just gives it to you and you just leverage it at your own means. So now let's just expand a little bit more in terms of Shopify themes. So what are Shopify themes? Because I've been speaking a few times, I've referenced it a few times going forward. Now, they are pre-designed templates that control the look and feel of your Shopify store. These determine the layout, the design, the functionality, the storefront end, including the pages, home, product, etc. Now, while this product is already there for you, it provides you the mobile responsive um, activities features, automatically adjusting to different devices for optimal user experience. So again, mobile commerce was one of the big factors of the economy booming or going forward with $125 billion pounds going forward. And then, of course, it's customizable, easily customizable from Shopify's theme editor, and modifying the colors, fonts, layouts, which I'll expand on in a bit more. And then obviously there's 2 themes. So within that, there are 2 themes going forward. There is free themes and there's paid themes. So while going through the basics, which is there are 7, as I said, 7 free themes available for Shopify, which is essential for the startup or small businesses. Now, this is very easy for people to pick up and go and just make quick adjustments, add your products listing towards it and going forward. But then if you want to make it a bit more flashy, or you want a bigger range going forward, there are developers that have created their own themes that have been trialed and tested to meet certain demands. So again, you can pay for additional, I think it's around £300 plus for those type of things. But again, we're going to focus on the free tier going forward. So what we're going to do here is just take a tour of Shopify and just have a quick understanding of how that looks going forward. So if I just quickly go to Shopify now and give a quick tour. As you can see on the left-hand side, we have many options in terms of navigation around. So you have the home, which allows you to provide you a setup guide and store settings, etc. Then you have orders. So these are pretty much where your orders will be coming from when everyone clicks your products on Shopify, which I'll show you in a moment going forward. So you can add shipping labels and obviously abandoning cart checkout experiences. Within that as well, we have products, which gives you all the listing of all your different products which you would like to sell or your services going forward. Within that, you can obviously go into more detail and then provide all the information required for that product, which Shopify will then just translate in the free theme and then present that on your store. You can obviously have retention of customers, obviously showcasing of everyone that's come through your Shopify store, and the finances, analytics, marketing, etc. Now, let us quickly just go over to, I know this is a whirlwind, but we're just going to go high level and give you a good experience of Shopify and the quick wins going forward. So once you go to online store, you can select themes. And these are the themes that currently exist. Obviously, as I was saying before, the popular themes for free tier themes. So these are the 7 available, such as Dawn, Spotlight, Refresh, Craft, Senses, you name it. I think there's 2 more. Now we're just going to focus on Dawn, and we're just going to give a preview of how that looks. So this is a free, the free theme of Dawn. Again, simple layout, mobile responsive, provides you all the products you need here. You select your product, you literally add it to cart. You can even have a checkout experience and view your cart going forward, and you can check out, which is all set up by Shopify with the free tier. And again, you have now the shipping in terms of payment. You provide your card details, and then everything gets set up and sent back to your orders list going forward in terms of confirmation. Now, this is fantastic going forward, but how do I edit this without developing? Well, now all you need to do is go to customize within your theme, and then it will provide you with a section that will allow you to edit everything going forward. So say, for example, on the left-hand side, you have the home page, and you have this thing called an announcement bar. Within this, I can edit the text here. So once I select it, on the right-hand side, you will see text, and it will have the content of welcome to our webinar. So if I now just add in some random text, I'll say welcome to our webinar, part 1, we'll say for now. And then again, it will then replicate that on the storefront here. And say, for example, I can scroll down on the actual canvas here in the middle, and I can edit it on the screen as well. So if I just double click here, it will then again give me this section on the right hand side to make adjustments. So again, it says welcome to our webinar, and I can just put part 2. Fantastic, it's now replicated there. And I can do that all across the board for my products, towards services, etc. going forward. So now when I now save these changes, which if I click this button here, press save, I will then go back, exit, and all I need to do is preview my changes. And as you can see as I go, the part 1 has been added there and the part 2 has been added here. So again, it's very easy, very seamless to then get off the ground and just start running Shopify with no dev experience. Let me just go back from that one there, and let's go back. Again, the considerations when developing an online store, there's so many additional things I could have gone over, but again, those are in the other future courses going forward. But areas that we could that would be useful as well is obviously the payment, the shipping, the customer privacy, the SEO, sales funnels, discounts, social media, Google Analytics. There's so much more to Shopify, which will be very hard to encapsulate in just one session. But again, very useful for knowledge going forward. So let us create our own template going forward. Our next session is to build on our custom template using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript going forward. So HTML, hypertext markup language. How do they work together? Well, essentially, let me just give you a brief overview. Think your website. Think of your website like a shop. Now, HTML is like a building. The construction, the building blocks, the scaffolding around everything. Then you have CSS, which is like the interior and decorator, designer, providing the nice splash colors, the wall paintings, all those features. And then you've got JavaScript, which is like the business, the running functionalities around there. So you've got your waiter, your manager, you've got your servers in terms of how the business will operate within that shop. And then you have Liquid, which is like the warehouse in a sense. So this is pretty much where all your information, all your inventory, all your information around your business is stored, and you can just basically access it at any given time when needed. So going forward, let us look into what is HTML as a brief overview. Well, HTML hypertext markup language is utilized as a structure to create content for web pages. It's text-based language that tells web browsers how to display the content on the page, including text, images, and other mediums. So if we break it down, HTML consists of 3 things: the structure, which is similar to the house, the blueprints, defining the elements of the web page; the markup, which is the markup symbols, the code, pretty much, which inserted into the files to tell the browser how to display things going forward, utilizing elements and tags, which we'll go over. And then the version, in terms of specification, maintaining the World Wide Web as the commonly known whenever your HTML is specified. So there's versions of HTML, and obviously the newest current version we're using is HTML5 going forward. So the whole point of HTML going forward is the whole point of HTML is to take a regular text and mark it up and give it a structure. So while we're developing, when we write the HTML itself, we'll take the text itself and add it into and transform it. So the HTML is simply a text file with a specific structure that consists of elements and tags. Now, element and tags, this is very important, but we'll expand a bit more in terms of what this is pretty much is the building blocks in terms of the structure for the website. Each HTML element consists of an opening tag and a closing bracket, which I'll explain a bit further. And most elements are paired with a closing tag for the / on the left-hand bracket. So if I just give you a quick example of what that would look like. On screen right now, you can just see quite a lot of mumbo jumbo. If you're not into tech or you haven't done HTML, this will look like quite confusing right now. But at the same time, if you have experience in tech, then fantastic. So this is a basic setup in terms of HTML, in terms of how the web page, the custom web page we're going to create is going to look like. Within it, we've got multiple elements, as you can see, going forward. Let me not clear. Such as we've got div tags, sections, you got p tags, h2. Now, what does this all mean? Because again, this is a structure for the website, but what does it actually do? How does the browser understand what it does and what it's going to tell you the next steps are? So if I now just go to the next slide, I'll just expand on that a little bit more. So let's just understand these details a bit more closely. So if we look at one of the elements, such as doctype notifies the browser that it's a HTML document. And then you've got another element such as HTML, which we saw before previously, which is showcasing the root element that acts as a container for every other element in that document. And then you have the two major areas such as head and body. Now, head includes the document's metadata and just areas of general information around the website, whereas the body is pretty much the container for the document that contains the content and that will be displayed across the browser. So there's other areas that we'll expand on today, which will be the nav bar and the hero, just sharing information in terms of the nav bar, and then obviously adding some graphical animation within that. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly showcase how that will look. So if I go back to the Shopify store, what I've done is I've given stages in terms of how a Shopify store would look in the first place. So here's a basic version of, let's go to show all. Let's go to publish this one. So let me just expand quickly on what a store looks like. So if I go to the editor for today, we will be coding within the Shopify stores editor. So this is an editor that allows you to basically manipulate the Shopify theme in any way you want. So if we just go for a quick breakdown, you have a layout, which consists of a theme, and this is pretty much the starting point for your website. Then within that, you have obviously Liquid, which allows you to dynamically reference different areas of Shopify. So this one here allows you to reference the index, which is your store homepage. So again, if you now go to index file here, if you go to templates, this is where it will be referenced. And within it, we have a Liquid script that basically says, okay, find anything called homepage within the section set area. So we have a folder called sections, and underneath that, we have a homepage Liquid file. And this is where we have our Hello World example going forward, which we'll be building on. So within this, we will be expanding how to build HTML through what we've just seen before. So if I now just exit that one there, what we're going to do is go visually understand how that works in HTML. So again, if we go back to the editor, we're just going to go through how that works. And let's go to theme, let's go to index, and then from there, we're going to go to the section homepage. So what I have done is pretty much added the code for the development for HTML. So as you can see, I've created a section tag here, which pretty much just breaks down the section of the component for the website, which is for header, which I'm going to break down further using Liquid. But again, I'll show you what Liquid is and how we can utilize this, leverage this going forward. Within this Shopify, within the HTML, I have now added a container. And this container is just going to, within a nav, sorry. So we have a nav nav element, and within that nav element, which is obviously defining the nested navigation links going forward, which we have here, these nested navigation links, we are now going to create a container, which will basically give us the dimensions, what we need for our nav bar. And then underneath that, we're going to define each nested link going forward, utilizing an unordered list. Now, unordered lists help us provide quick navigation in that sense, or layouts in that sense, for multiple names. So for this scenario going forward, we're just going to utilize a unordered list to present our links and style it later on. As you can see, we have things called classes around our HTML code, which we will then be styling later on as well. Underneath that, we have the hero and we have a container for that, for the content. Now, this hero image going forward will contain pretty much the image background. So we're just going to translate that in CSS later on and how that will work. So again, in terms of the building blocks, we are pretty much just building a structure, a scaffolding around what our website will look like and how we will be managing the different expectations. So looking at the hero section, we'll add that in and make that adjustable using Liquid going forward in future explorations. And in the container here, we're just having general information that we presented. So if we have content 1, for example, which is a heading, and we look further, we've got just random lorem filler context placeholders. So we can just obviously see how that will look. So again, if I now come out of that and just go to preview, this is currently how our website looks like. So again, this is our nav bar and our links. And then underneath that, we have our welcome to website, which is going to be our hero section. And then we're going to have content 1 and content 2, just showing information underneath our landing page. So let us understand, how can we style this going forward? What areas we can look into as we progress forward. So what I'm going to do is expand further on that. So topics, obviously this is a very short session in a sense, but areas that we can cover are obviously within HTML is the workflows, the Chrome tools, document structures, how to comment out, provide comments, paragraph elements, headings, lists, styling elements, images, you name it. And there's so much more in HTML that we could go over. But again, this is just to give you the blueprints or the introduction into it. So hopefully we're good for time. That's all right. Cool. Let us expand to CSS. So again, from the beginning, I was saying that HTML is the shop, the building blocks going forward, the building in that sense. And then CSS is the interior design. So what is CSS? CSS is a cascading style sheets. It is a style sheet language utilized for defining the presentation and visualizations for the document created for HTML. It enables the control of the layout, colors, fonts, overall appearance. It basically just makes it look nice in that sense. So how do we now expand on that? What is the structure like? Well, the structure consists of this thing called CSS rules. Now, CSS rules is a set of instructions used to style HTML elements on a web page. It defines how specific elements should look by specifying style properties like color, font, sizing, layouts, etc. Now, the structure of a CSS rule is normally based off a selector and a declaration block. A selector specifies which HTML element the rule applies to. So again, if we go to a p tag, or let's say h1, which is a header 1 in that sense, if we want to specify that selector, that is what it will be calling, that h1 tag or element. And then the declaration block is define the styling in terms of how that appeals. So if I now go further, I'll expand a bit further what that means. So expanding on the CSS rules, as I said, they're selected determined by the elements that are targeted. So example, that will be the P tag or class name or ID or div. Again, we'll have more sessions going forward in terms of how that works and what that means. But again, just for high level, these are just common areas that people go over. So if you look at the image, this is how your CSS code would look like going forward. So you would have color blue and the font size as 16. So this is just the sizing. Now declarations contain the property and the value of the pair. So each property value pair specifies how the target of the element should be styled. So this is pretty much the declaration, which is obviously the brackets here. So if you can see, this is me declaring what that the selector will consist of, the styling will consist of. Then you have the properties. The properties is pretty much the color, the font, anything that you want to change for that element. Then you have the value itself, which is obviously the sizing or the color. So now you've defined the property, say color. Now I want to make sure the value is the color is changed to blue or red or green, etc. The importance of each component, the selector ensures only specific elements are styled, providing control of the design, whereas the property and value defines the actual style and appearance of the elements, making it customizable. So they work hand in hand going forward. So how does our code look like, and how are we going to style our our custom theme today? So these are a list of the properties we'll be using today. Now they're quite long, quite extensive to a degree, depending if you've never done coding before. But again, I'll just give you a higher level overview of this and obviously show you the outcome of utilizing these things. So we're going to be using things like margins going forward, setting up. So this allows us to set the space around elements and borders. We're going to utilize things like display flex. So this allows you to create a flexbox layout for horizontal and vertical alignment. So it's very easy and how can I say, one of the best things I think of CSS today. I'm definitely a flexbox warrior when it comes into design. In terms of providing flexibility for both top horizontal and vertical alignment, which I'll show later on. Other things such as positions and fix. So this is very useful for our navigation bar. So this is going to fix our element to position relative to the viewpoint. So this is just basically saying that I'm going to, wherever I create the code to put my nav bar, is going to now stay there throughout the whole duration while you're scrolling through the browser and through the website, sorry. And there's many other areas going forward that we'll look into, which is color, text declaration, sizing. Now, what does that look like in our code? This is an example pretty much of what we're going to create and how our code is going to transpire from the scaffolding that I created in HTML to, sorry, 1 moment. This is going to think drop. Yes, into the interior design going forward. So without further ado, let's go into Shopify itself. And let's now transform what we have here in terms of our scaffolding for HTML into a more pleasant, pretty aesthetics, because it looks a bit bland right now. So if we just go down and we utilize this one here, I'm just going to show you how that CSS in terms of interior design is going to now make that position of the HTML code look more pleasing. And voila, this is the outcome of the CSS that we've added to that website. So again, what we're doing is expanding on what we've learned in terms of understanding of CSS and how we can make that reality. So if I now go to the code itself, again, what we have done in code itself is if we go to the index, and then from index, we go to section for the home page. Right now, if you look at home page, we have these areas that we've added for the scaffolding. But now we need to style these areas. And the way we style them is obviously using those selectors that I just ran over. So to do so, we have to create things called classes. And these classes are referenced to our CSS to say what we want to happen on screen. So now if I go to our CSS, it's not which is located in our themes. So if I go to our themes right now, as you can see, we have this thing called CSS application right here on line 10. And right now what we're doing is we're using Shopify Liquid in that sense to link all our CSS stylings within our main theme layout. So that what happens is once we link our CSS within the head of our theme itself going forward, it will then transpire and trickle down into all of our other web pages. So if I create another template and I call it, say for products, for example, all of the CSS that I create within application.cs will then be available within that as well. So if I now show you where that's actually being stored, Shopify likes to store CSS, JavaScript, or any other assets in the assets folder. So if you go down and go to assets, as you can see, we have a CSS file. And within it is all the CSS that we have. That's allowing us to transpire the outcome from the HTML and from that boring template that we had before to something more aesthetically pleasing. So again, we have things like margin, which are again, this is called global. So we have a thing called the star here selector, and it means global. And global pretty much allows you to select everything across the web page, in a sense, the web browser. Not web browser, sorry, the website, the web page itself. So everything around any web page that's displayed will then take in these properties and these whatever values attained attached to it. So again, all at the starting point, everything will have a margin of 0, meaning there's no margin. Then we look into other areas such as padding, display flex, containers, etc. So again, if you think about the header going forward here, we have a section and then we have a class which we want it to be styled on the header. And then within that, we're stating that we want a display flex, which basically has vertical and horizontal alignment, allowing you to basically manipulate that property, that section that we've created. So it allows us to basically move things interchangeably on the screen. Then we have things like containers. So we have another area called container. So this container here is pretty much mapping the length of the screen for our design. So we want this container to be a width of 1,200 pixels. That's basically just saying, I want you to meet, as I go into the actual design, to meet the whole screen width, as you can see. So now I've created a container and I've told my container to meet the width of the screen, pretty much, as you can see here displayed. And then within that as well, I have a nav bar or class that allows me to position that as fixed. So that was one of the properties that we went over going forward. So again, this fixed attribute value allows you to make sure that when you scroll down, it will always be fixed going forward. So as we go further and further down, there are so many more areas that we would love to cover, but because of the short time that we have, I will only be expanding on the key areas that are relevant. So say for example, hero, this hero section, I have now provided a background image. Now this background image here is this purple background with a flashing effect in the back. So I've taken a URL from a page of my choosing, and I want that to be rendered on screen, to be presented on screen, which is here. And then within that, I just want to make sure that it takes up the whole screen going forward as my landing page. So as you can see, I have the height as 100 going forward. So view height in measuring. So the view height of the page is 100. And then within that, I want to make sure, I should have, in a sense, that it's covering the whole page. So now I've set the height, the definition of the height of the page, for my hero, which is pretty much just a large image with information for your landing page. Within that, I have now defined additionally the areas I would like to cover, such as the background sizing. I want it to cover the whole image. If I change that now, it would, there's other properties will make it fit, or I can crop it, or I can provide a different experience in terms of outcome of how that image will look in terms of filling out the whole container that I've created for that hero. Again, I've asked all content inside that hero to now have alignment of center. So that means all my text will be centered going forward. So as you can see, welcome to my website, and then some content underneath it. I'm now just utilizing some CSS properties within my hero with the selector to now align all that information. So now, without further ado, there are so many different areas I would love to cover. Again, if I go back into the topics to cover, there's so many things, such as the colors, the styling, pseudocode, CS selectors, box model, positioning, transitioning. These are so many other areas to cover within CSS. But again, those will be covered within a more refined, detailed focus sessions for CSS. And then now we would like to just go over JavaScript and how that works. So now what we've done so far is created scaffolding, the blueprints to the building, to the shop. Now we've added with the interior design. We've added the design works in terms of the nav bar, the hero, the context of how that looks. And now in terms of the business logic, we want to now just add in more functionalities going forward. And that will help everybody go forward in terms of the business logic, such as the interaction, the animations, the things that you can do with the website to make it more of a web app. So within that, within that section, let us go into what is JavaScript and what is that going forward. So JavaScript is a programming language that enhances the web pages by introducing dynamic functionality and sophisticated features, such as an interactive animations alongside HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It serves as a fundamental component of the web development. So as we were saying, these all work interchangeably, and they work together to create a very unique impact. So JavaScript makes web pages more dynamic, allowing browsers to respond to user interactions, such as changes on the page. So when a user scrolls, there's some sort of effect that happens. When a user clicks on something or on a button, there's some sort of hover effect, or there's some reaction that happens. Or when they click on a button, new information is displayed going forward. So again, JavaScript manages the experience within the website itself. creating multiple things such as drop downs, validating your form fields, updating content in real time, and many more things. JavaScript as well serves as a multitude of purposes. It would be impossible to cover all of them within this session, but one area we're going to go over is the document model. Now, what is the document model? Well, in hindsight, it's like a tree. And just think of your whole website as a tree, and you're just transcending down towards all the elements or nodes that are displayed. So if you look at the example on the right-hand side, you can see a DOM tree example. Now, this is pretty much the blueprint, I guess, or the basics in terms of how your DOM model will work. So you start with your window attribute, and from there you go to the document, and then you go to your HTML. So initially, JavaScript is utilized to manipulate the document object model. So manipulate the tree. So I'll delve into the DOM in greater detail in our other courses, but essentially it can be virtualized, as you can see, as nodes, representations of nodes, where every element on the web page is represented as a node, where this includes the HTML tags, attributes, and text on content. So JavaScript offers numerous methods in dynamically altering the structure, as well as modifying the content and styles of the element within the DOM. For instance, developers can employ JavaScript to add, remove, or modify the text. So now you have access to this tree, this DOM model. Say, for example, on the right-hand side, I want to change the title, for example, based on a user. It can click on a button. Once the user clicks on the button, it changes from thank you for, I don't know, congratulations, or a moment, or sign up feature. Again, while you now utilize that event, which we'll go over a bit more detail as well, what events are, what are properties, what are methods in JavaScript, you are now pretty much providing an experience utilizing the DOM and accessing the DOM, where you can now manipulate all the HTML nodes and elements going forward. So going forward on that, let's look at what that looks like. So within our code, I'm just going to expand on how some of these things work. So again, some of these methods, such as the DOM content loader. So this is something where it's a function, an event that fires when the HTML document is ready. So say, for example, when you're writing JavaScript, all works fine, but sometimes the browser isn't ready to take in that information. And the way to process that information is to wrap it around using this document content loader, which basically says when the browser is ready, execute your code. Other things such as window represents the browser window. So this provides properties and methods to control it. So as you saw previously in the tree, it went from window to document. So that's pretty much the browser in terms of access. So you have the highest access of privileges going forward. Document as well, which is an object, represents the HTML document loaded in the window, allowing access and manipulation of the elements. So again, it's just another area where you can manipulate the nodes going forward. Query selectors as well is a very useful method. So this is a method that selects the first element of the document and matches a specific CSS selector. So again, remember before we were speaking about CSS and the selectors and the elements. So now the query selector, this method in JavaScript, finds the method itself. Finds the element itself and then applies logic around it and manipulates that node itself going forward. As I've explained before, utilizing the DOM, we can have access to every element in our web page. But yeah, what I'm going to do is now, just to save time, there's so many more things I could expand on, but let's look at the code. The code itself, I've just created some simple code today that pretty much encompasses all of what I've just spoken in a very short form. So what we're going to do is basically just go over how the JavaScript manipulates the DOM and how it accesses and creates unique features on the page. So what this code does right now is that once what I've done is create a listener to say, okay, once the page is ready, once the browser page is ready, find nav within my HTML. So obviously I've added nav as a class within my HTML element. And then when I have nav, make sure you run a function as well in addition, which is add event listener. So what I'm doing is, one, I'm grabbing access to the nav where it's selected, which is the nav bar. And then I'm creating another line of code, which is adding a listener to say, okay, cool. I want an event listener to say when you scroll, which there's many event listeners, bearing in mind. So there's a click, you can do on arrow keys, you can do on spacebar, you can do on location. There's many event listeners. But on this specific example, we're just going to say, whenever the user scrolls on the screen, run my code for fixed nav. And right here is a function called fixed nav. And in fixed nav, all I'm doing is providing some conditional logic stating when you scroll on the y-axis, meaning going up and down the screen, when you now go past a certain limit of 150 pixels going forward, create an effect and add active towards one my nav class. Now, what's happened is that in my code, in my CSS, which I'll show in a moment, is that when I add active to my nav class, it changes the whole nav bar, which I will show in a second. So let me go over to our JavaScript side of things. And what we'll do is going to publish that side. And then I'm going to show you preview of this experience. So again, this is the JavaScript enabled with everything working perfectly fine with our HTML as our structure. We've added our CSS in terms of making it look nice. And now we've got some JavaScript to now change this navbar with effects. So now, for example, when I scroll down, this will change from a black background to a white background and smaller and reduce it in size as well. So again, as I scroll down past 150, it will then change to white and it reduces the sizing of the navbar based on that event that I created, based on the events, the method I ran. So again, as I said before, as you scroll down, that is now consistent. But then when I scroll all the way back up, it will go back to normal. So how does that work? What does that look like? Let's look. Let's see. So if we go and edit our code now, go back to our editor, you can, if you go back to assets, as I said before, within our assets, Shopify likes to put everything in terms of CSS or JavaScript within assets folder. So then this is just a common place and a best practice. We go to our application, not JavaScript. This is where we've placed our code. Going forward. So look, after this experience going forward, we're just going to expand a bit further. So looking at the nav itself, as I said, I've already gone through how that works. Where is that located? Because this code is running here, but where is it being executed? Well, if we go back, as we saw in our theme liquids for our CSS, we have a line here for JavaScript, which basically says anything that's called application.js, link this as a JavaScript tag going forward. Now, there's other ways we can advance this going forward. which is very useful, such as making it asynchronous. So we can change that as well, utilizing a script tag. So that script tag would be very useful in our experiences for providing a more seamless outcome. So to do that, what I will do is leave that for that point. Actually, based on time, we'll keep that as it is actually. But yes, essentially, this basically links the JavaScript experience going forward. So let's go back to the page itself. So we have a good overview of how this has all come together. So if we go back to sections, homepage, going forward, as you can see, we have, and I'll open up the CSS as well alongside, which will be useful. Yep, there is our application.css. This is our homepage.liquid, which is our home HTML. And we're going to delete that one. And we're going to showcase this one. Cool. So again, if we now just start from the beginning, in terms of just recapping everything, in terms of how this has come together, we have a theme that's been underneath our layout and folder, which always has to be defined. You cannot define and you cannot build a Shopify website without a theme with this structure. Then we've got utilize content for layout, which has directed us towards the index file, which will then call for the section for homepage, which is this one. Now within the homepage, again, we have now organized our structure, our building, our shop in that sense, in the way that we want. So here we have header, and then underneath here we have the hero. And then underneath that we have content. Fantastic. And then what we've done is that we've styled each section going forward. So as I explained before, within the hero section, which is this tag, between that tag, I've now defined a div tag to say, okay, cool. I want a container that contains my hero. And within that, I want to define a container that basically manages how that will look inside. And if we go back to the CSS and we scroll down to hero, and we've got all the content inside that in terms of how we will manipulate that. So we have hero, h1, before, sorry, in terms of, okay, anything inside my hero class going forward, I would like it to anything that has a h1 element, I would like it to be adjusted, showcasing a different font size and a margin, which again, this is just obviously size of the actual text and where that's been placed in terms of the margin around it, the spacing around it. So again, that is a quick overview of that. But then how do we now expand this further? How do we now make this more Shopifyable in that sense? And this is where Liquid comes into play. But before we go through that, there are many other areas I would love to cover in JavaScript. But here are some of the fundamentals that JavaScript provides. So things that you need to know about JavaScript is more around variables and data types, functions and scopes of how they work. So we also had provided an example of how functions worked in the scopes. But again, we can go in more detail in terms of how that works in the scopes. Arrays and objects, what are they? What are they used for? How do we utilize them? Loops. What are loops? When we're iterating through things, providing feedback, iterating through collections or lists. So say, for example, we're going through, we've got a list of products and we want to now display those list of products. How do we find all of them? How do we get each individual one? And loops are obviously, and iterations are key for that. Array methods, logical flows, and events. There are many things that we can go over. So I explained one type of event, which was the scroll event for add listener for that part. So within the add event listener, we could provide an event, or in a sense, if that's from a method perspective, we can obviously provide from the DOM content loaded. So again, when we're waiting for the browser to be ready and fully loaded, we use a DOM content loader, which is an event that waits for that to work to happen, and then everything else can be executed after that. So there's many things we can go over, but initially what we're going to expand more into is Liquid. Now, JavaScript obviously is great, but again, Liquid is what allows us to interact with Shopify. So what is Liquid? Liquid is creates templates, using Liquid to create a single template to host static content. So now we can provide access in multiple ways from Shopify using Liquid to create schemas, which we'll go over in a moment, in a sense. That allows us to adapt anything on the page with a static, such as text as alignment, which we'll show in a moment. Insert information dynamically. So we're using Liquid to insert information based on where the template is rendered. So again, we can do things such as sections and snippets. So these are areas that we can dynamically insert in multiple areas of the website where we've already created a component where we would like to reutilize that somewhere else. So what we're going to do is change our code from our header, which we have in the section, and we're going to add that into a snippet where we can dynamically add that in and defining the logic. So defining logic using Liquid, define logic that tells templates what to do. So again, we can do conditions, we can do if statements, there's so much more. We can do for loops, the when statements, etc. And we can modify the output. So how we can do that is by using outputs of variables and objects. So again, same as JavaScript, you can define a variable, but we can obviously modify how that will look and change that going forward by using a sign keyword going forward. Representing variables as well, using Liquid to represent variables that can be used to build on the theme. So we will expand that further. So Liquid is an open source template engine language. So just to expand a bit more around that, what these areas I just covered before were, is that it's used to dynamically display content, right? And the purpose is to act like a bridge between Shopify's backend and the front end. So if you want any product information, you will use Liquid, and you use Liquid to access product info. Or if you want to use the blogs, you would use Liquid to access the blog information. Or if you want to use carts and shipping and stuff like that, you would use Liquid. So this is pretty much just making it more dynamic or accessible to Shopify's ecosystem. So the key features of Liquid going forward are tags. So tags are logic that are used for control flows. So these tags, we can provide things like if statements or for statements or when statements, etc. So these are control flows that allow your cases, in a sense, that allow you to dictate what you manipulate on the page, which we'll expand on in a moment. Other areas as well, which will be objects accessing. So again, parts of the products, like product information or collections. We want to access its information. So I have a certain product and I want to access its title, or I want to access its pricing. In a sense, how much does it cost? Or what variants does it provide? And what colors are available for that product? That is all provided as defined underneath objects, which is a key feature. And then you have things called filters. Now, filters modify the output of anything within Liquid. So say, for example, as you can see here, you have product.price. Now, product says, okay, I want to find a product and I want its price, but at the same time, I want to convert it, not to, I don't want it just to show 10.0 or 10.59. I want it to have a money symbol across to it. Say I want it to be in pound sterling. So now you would have this thing called a filter, which then will transform that product price into the required design. So it'll be then £10 with a pound sign before the money, before the numerical value, and then showcase it in the correct format. So there's many things of how you can now utilize that and filter other things. So common uses in Shopify is to display dynamic content on product pages, collections, and other templates, and rendering conditional content showing different messages based on the stock available. That's one example in that sense. Another area would be formatting data, such as prices, dates, and more things. So again, as I said, you don't have to just do money in a sense, but such as dates. What format is it coming into? Now, is it showing me in British time in that sense? Is it in a date format or is it in a time format? How does that look? And we can then translate that utilizing filters going forward. Within Liquid itself as well, going forward, we have is very flexible and supports both logic and the content used widely across Shopify's themes. So this is used just basically to manipulate all the items that we've made pretty on the page and just make it more dynamic for the user experience in terms of grabbing the products, services that we will have access to, and even for making it more easier for admin to make those easy changes that I showed in the beginning, utilizing the free template and how that looks going forward. So let me go to the next one. So how does that template look in that sense? So again, in Liquid is very useful. And as you may have known so far, most of the files defined are in liquid.liquid. Now, going forward, they introduced a new approach in 2.0, online store 2.0, which allows merchants to, how can I say, develop the control of pages directly through templates. Now, it's not just before, it was just Liquid templates in which I'll expand a bit more when I show you. Everything would be underneath one hood and templates, and you just create multiple sections and you'll just have to provide multiple snippets in your sections in that sense. Whereas now you have a JSON structure which allows you to provide what sections you want to be included in what page. So say, for example, I have a product page and I have a list of products in that product page. I want to show the nav bar in it. I want to show the products, list of products, and I want to show a footer. Now, how can I organize that into one page? Now, this is where the JSON template comes into play, where it's a key feature that controls the structure and the content of a page. Now, this location of the JSON templates can only be created within the template folder, not the assets, config, or anywhere else. So it's very key where you utilize this going forward. So what we're going to do is create a JSON template, and we're going to change the index .json. Sorry, we're going to change the liquid.json into index, into a JSON file, from liquid to JSON. And this is converting from the old style to the new system. So we're just going to understand how the JSON structure is formatted. No liquid code is allowed in JSON form and files, so we have to be mindful of that. The key areas within the JSON files are name, layout, wrapper, sections, and order. So the name is the name of the template. The layout allows you to use default themes, so the layout of the file, how it's going to be used. Customize. The wrapper wraps content of HTML tags within it. Sections define the IDs for the page, and order is basically the section of how each it's just a principle that you have to utilize the order and showcase the order in terms of what component or section is being displayed in that JSON format. So if I now showcase how that works, what we're going to do here is add in a JSON schema. So let's go back and let us maximize this. Okay, so first things first, I want to make the hero, not even a hero. I want to remove this header. I don't think the header is suited properly here, because what happens if I create a new page? Do I have to recreate this? Well, utilizing snippets, I can render that anywhere across any page within my sections. So what I'm going to do is create a new file for my navigation. And I'm just going to go to snippets. I'm going to add, and I'm going to create a new file. I'm just going to call it nav.liquid. Now, within this file, what I'm going to do is just copy and paste, or remove in that sense. Let's go back to the page. I'm going to remove this section here. I'm going to cut it going forward. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it into my new snippet file called nav.liquid. Let me just edit this as well, because you don't need to do, let me just rename that back. And then we've got that, great. So now I'm just going to add my header here, and now it's within my snippet folder going forward. Now, what I want to do is render this on every single page going forward. So I don't want it just to be within my home page. I want it to be on every page that I create. So if I go to a products page, it will be there. If I go to my cart, my shopping cart, it will be there. So to do this, all I need to do is go back to my themes, which is up here. And within my body, I just need to define, oops, let me do that again. And I'm going to say render. Oops, it doesn't do it that way. Okay, I'll do it old school, type it all out. And all I need to do is type in render. And then render is a part of a dynamic play that allows me to implement, add any component I want here within the body of my theme. So now I just want to find nav. There you go, it found it and it automatically applied it. So now I have render at the top of this. Every time my page gets hit going forward, it will now render that page. Render my nav bar on top of any content that gets displayed. Now, what else would I like to do? If I go back into my go back into home. What else can I do to make it more dynamic and useful? So one other area that I would like to change is the title. Now, I don't want to always, as a developer, have to change this information. I want people in the business to change this at any given time. So they have access and control over anything that they desire. So now to do that, we can go in and we remove this. But before we remove it, we have to do a thing called a schema. And this schema is pretty much the blueprint, I guess, in a sense, or the baseline for us to, let me just go back, to define what elements can be adapted using Liquid. So if I just do curly brackets, and then I do %, going forward, it will automatically create that. And all I need to do is type in schema. I just enter that. And then within that schema, I have a opening and closing block. So all I need to do is end that schema. So I just do end schema. Great. Now within that block, I need to create curly brackets, such as these. And I just need to define what my schema is called. So I'm just going to call it name. And then in name, I'll just call it home. And in this home section, I want to give it settings. So settings allows you to provide the information needed to manipulate your Shopify store. So say for example, I'm going to create a section for changing the text. And I'm going to do type. And then within that, I'm going to call it text. And this gives you the option to change the text within the customization section, which I showed you before in the earlier stages using a free template. So now if we just add in ID, fantastic. This will now allow us to identify what the section is concerning, which is, we're going to say title. And then within that title, we are going to expand and we're going to give it a label. And this label is just pretty much just a heading over when you're going to customization, you know what you're doing in that area. So if I want to customize it, I just want it to be called title. I'll say change title. Did that wrong. Now we have a label. I want to provide it with a default. And this default states that all the information, this states that with anyone changing it or not changing it, this is what it will be displayed on the web page going forward. So I'll just say welcome as a default. Now to integrate that into our website, we need to make it dynamic, and we can do that by putting these curly brackets twice, double curly brackets. And what we do is we type in section. And this basically allows you to find a thing called settings, which we've defined here within our schema. So settings is here, we click on settings. And then now we want to find title, which is this, which is a string. So now this allows us to adapt. Oops, I've just taken that one out, my bad. Adapt our title now within the Shopify store. So now it's not just in code, but it's now allowed to be adapted in the Shopify store, where anyone in admin can now make changes to that. So one thing is, before we go forward, is this is great, but I want to make it JSON. I want to update from the old version of Liquid to the JSON format using 2.0. Now, how do I do that? Going forward, if I go to my theme, my theme is going to the index, and index is underneath templates. So if I just go to templates, let me just minimize these things here. I've got templates here. And in this, I have a section. So what I want to do now is I want to create a new template. And I want to call this index, oops. Create a new template, okay. And we're going to do this index. I'm going to do index.json. So here, we're going to do index liquid, and it should allow us, oh, let me refresh this actually. Stay, and let me just add that template again. Let's go to index. Yep. And we want to call it index. Okay. It won't allow me to do that one. All right, fair. So we're just going to call it page. Done. And what we've done is index page. And what we're going to do here is that in our template for index.page, we're going to create a schema. And this schema, this JSON, sorry, is going to allow us allow us to create a section which we can call. So we're just going to go section, and in that section we're going to, here we go, add a template. So in every section for your JSON, you have to create a template. And for that, we need to, let me just add this and create that type. So we need to create an ID. So what's happening right now is that within our JSON, Liquid, in our JSON, we now have created a section that says, okay, define an entity or an ID in that sense. So the ID, we're going to call it template. And then within template, we're just going to create a type. And this type, oops, is going to reference where we want to call our service, such as homepage. So we're going to do this home. Do we call it homepage? Yes, homepage. So now what it's going to do is call our homepage here going forward. So within that, we need to make sure that it has an order. And to do that, we need to create an array that takes an order, so the position, or anything that we have defined in our section. So we're just going to create an order, and we're going to identify that template is first in that template. So what is happening is that if I create another section from here. So for example, if I put footer underneath here, going forward, I can then allow that order to be specified here. So I don't want footer to be above my template, which will be the homepage. I want it to be underneath my homepage in terms of the content that's being displayed. So then what I'll do is create my footer here, and then I'll reference to my footer, and then I'll add that position, the order, to be underneath the template, which will be my homepage, so that when it shows on screen, everyone understands what the purpose is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save that, and I'm just going to go exit out. I'm going to leave that page for now. But then if we go to the final subject, and I preview this going forward, as you can see, everything is fine, fantastic. But what I've changed now is, if I go to customization in this one here, which is this point, on the right hand side, you can see everything is customizable now because I've added liquid within using JSON, sectioned what I require. This is now a snippet, and I can change anything I want on that page. So say, for example, I have welcome to webinar. I'm sorry, welcome to my website 2. And then what I can do, I can just say website 3. And here's subtitle is welcome, enjoy the Shopify experience. XP. And then again, we can just make any changes that we want and going forward across the border. So if I wanted to now change the content 1, I can change that title to new technology tech going forward. And then it will just represent that as the live version. Now there's another thing in this, which is called, we can add in, such as radio buttons or ranges, like sliders, for example. So here you have more text. Now, again, you can see one section here and the second section underneath. But again, if I now select this section here and say yes, it reloads my page. And if you scroll down, there now is section 3. Now, section 3 was hidden from us before, and we didn't know that existed until we said confirmed, do you want more text? And then once we selected yes, it was shown and displayed. But how does that work in code now? Because that was all done through this platform here. So if I now just say, if I leave this page, and let me just go into the code going forward. So as you can see, if I go straight into my index, and then from here, I'm going to go to home page because I've defined that now in my JSON file. If I go into sections and go to home page, you can now see my liquid. Liquid has been introduced across the border. So now, if you go to more text, as you can see here from line 20 to 25, I have new context. And around it, wrapped around it, I have a conditional block. And this conditional block says, if more text is equal to true, then show this. If it's equal to false or anything else, don't show this. Now, if you go to more text I've defined at the top, and I've created a variable which you would utilize an assign variable. This assign variable will allow you to create, assign any type going forward in terms of liquid. So now I've created a variable called more text, and then I have sections dot settings dot more text. Now, how did I find that? Where is that located? Well, if you remember before, if you go back to your schema and I go down, I have a section for more text. So remember the ID is called more text. And then within that, it gives me the value of true and false. By default, at any given time, if no one has clicked anything on those radio buttons, it will always be false. Meaning, if I go back up to this if condition, this condition will never be true and this will never be shown. So now if I go back down, and if you now create a type for radio, which is here, there's many other different references as well. Let's not click that. But radio, within that, we can then select, we can provide many options going forward, as many as you want, for the user to manipulate the website. And that is pretty much the main outcome for that. There are many other things where we can do, again, which will reference different functionality, such as when blocks. So we can then create other things and say, or changes. So say, if this is changing, we can change the color. So if we're saying if true, we can do that. But then what happens if we put another block around here and let us do, we'll just do if, and we will do if, red equals, actually let's say color, text color equals red, and then we will show this part as red going forward. So we can just do end if, and what we're going to do is add, well, actually no, actually instead of that, we'll actually change that to, what's the time? Okay, we have a bit of time. We'll change this actually, instead of doing colors, we'll just do another condition. We'll just say needed. And we'll say yes. And then we'll create another assigned variable at the top. And what we will do is assign, and it automatically will display that for me. I'll call the variable needed. And then what I'll do is I'll create settings, a section, direction to my section, and then I'll find settings. And then from that, I'm going to create needed, just as an example to showcase what happened there. And then what I'm going to do is scroll down. I'm going to go down here, create a new radio button. And then let's make it. And then for there, I'm going to create a type. And I'm going to create type radio. Or what other options do we have? We can do an article, a checkbox, a color. We can do HTML. There's so many different areas that we can cover and use. But for now, for this exercise, let's just stick to radio. And then within the radio itself, we want to give an ID. And that ID, we will call it needed, just for an example. The naming conventions are not the best right now, but definitely useful. And then what we need is a label, and we're just going to call it is this needed? I don't know, for example. give a question, or we can give a direction to whoever now needs to make changes to the website. And then we will just go here and we can create options. And these options gives an array, and we'll say in the array, we'll say option 1, which we'll put the curly brackets around, and we'll just say value. And no, that didn't do it. Value, and that value is going to be yes. And then underneath that, we're going to then create another label to just dictate yes. Label is yes, this is needed. So we're just going to do one value for that. And as we go forward, that's going to find needed. That's going to go down. And we're going to save this going forward. And oh God, didn't end that properly on line 13, which is this needed is equal to yes, which is this. It's going to debug quickly what happened there. Unexpected character in needed, which is, why did it not say it like that? And this is the joys of programming. We get to understand differences in terms of why things want to work and not. So this is line 13, end block. And all we want to do is match the string. And what did I miss? Okay, is it needed? Oh, it is. Okay. What I'll do is debug that in a moment. And value is yes. Label is yes. Label is there. Okay. Let us just quickly check something. Is it that block? Okay, that is the block. And then what I'm going to do is quickly check that again. I'm going to say needed. And I'm going to call that yes. And I'm just going to give it an end if. And then if I save it, yeah, okay. It must have been some glitch in Shopify. But again, now that's saved, I can go exit this code, load the page, because I've saved it. And then I go into customization. And as you can see, if I click this, go to home, go to the bottom here, I have a new radio button called is this needed. And now I have a yes button that says it's always going to be yes. So again, that will always be true, and it will always show the content of number 2 going forward. But that's just a quick example of in terms of what I've done, how I got to those points, and just going over that again. Now we're ending near the end of the session. There are so many other areas that I would love to cover, such as the basics, well, within Liquid, such as basic syntax, objects, variables, tags, filters in terms of the differences there are and how you would filter certain Liquid information, the loops in terms of for loops, conditions. We went over templates, sections a bit, accessing global variable objects. That's very useful. Forms, honestly, is great as well, free as well within your pricing, so you can allow people to send information to you just from your Shopify website. Pagination is very useful as well, makes it much more easier and seamless. Scope debugging and much more. So again, there's going to be more content around that going forward, and more sessions in terms of building your knowledge of how that can be. So right now, I'm just going to before questions in that sense, but I'm going to shoot a form. Yetunde, do you have that form by any chance? I'm just going to give a form to everybody just to fill out, just to give an understanding of your experience, just questions around what we've covered. It's been a very long session, definitely, and obviously if you wasn't able to attend as well, this will be sent to your email as well, so you can definitely review this in your own time, and just get sneak peeks in terms of what we're trying to do, what we've done in this session, and yeah, in terms of how you would like to build yourself within the online platform of e-commerce using Shopify, or becoming a web developer and expanding further. But yes, is there any in that sense? If there's no questions going so far, access to the forms is in the link, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to expand further in these sessions going forward. But yes, I think that is it. Oh, and the other thing is, if you wasn't again, once you've if you're able to join, or you want more information, because we're going to be broadcasting this across in terms of TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Medium profiles. We're going to be doing a lot more in-depth sessions, more tailored towards people's interests, and obviously what the market is giving and what is needed to be up and coming in these areas. So again, stay tuned, scan the QR codes, and yes, hopefully we'll see you in the next session.
Please do complete the form that's for me.